Coming up on today's episode of the Health Review.
You will not be able to do as the smashing workouts in your follicular phase as you will in your luteal phase. With my clients, I normally recommend in that luteal phase, go for consistency over intensity. I did start to post about my insecurities online, and the amount of positive feedback of women being like, oh my gosh, the fact that you're worried about that, that's crazy. And realizing that your ideal body that you're idolizing online, they still have bits about their body that they dislike. Try and dive into the emotional attachment as to why exercising is important to them. Finding that emotional attachment so that you are more disciplined with it and you kind of realize, right, this has got to be a priority.
Hello, welcome back to the Health Review. Thanks for joining. Now, on today's episode, I'm on a mission to find out why women are not exercising as much as they could be for their health. We know it's so important. That's after a recent study came out by Vitality, which suggested that less than 1 in 4 women are exercising the recommended 150 minutes per week. I have put out a poll on my Instagram, if you follow at the Health Review, to find out from my audience how they feel about exercising. And with the poll, 62% of women said that they're struggling to find the time. And I think this is a really common theme for a lot of women, finding time to exercise through their busy schedules. 8% said that they didn't enjoy exercise, and 30% said either their motivation or mental health was making it more difficult. I'm going to be discussing all of this with my very lovely guest today, Vikki Hill, who's a personal trainer and a Gymshark pro trainer. Vikki's been working in the industry for 8 years, and she also offers some amazing online coaching for clients. Vikki's aim is to help women overcome the anxiety of a once intimidating space and to find their confidence in the gym. So this is a big topic we're going to speak about on the show today. Welcome, Vikki.
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on, and so delighted to be speaking to you. We met at an event. I saw you speak on a panel. It was all about hormones and how women can feel better. You were talking about cycle syncing, which is something that's a real hot topic at the moment. Also saw you on the Gymshark Run Club, which you were amazing, by the way.
It was so much fun. I loved the surprise. It was so nice that you popped up. I loved it. It was so good.
My God, I love that gym club. I did a couple of reels about it, and people on TikTok are loving that reel, just seeing how it's one of the best run clubs out there.
We are so community focused, and we kind of offer all ranges, and I think that's what's quite popular. And you get a free juice at the end, so why not?
Yeah, it's so good. It's just amazing. I wanted to talk to you about how women can feel more confident in the gym. As I've said, a lot of women are struggling to fit in that time. 150 minutes a week is recommended. And it seems that women are struggling to make that part of their routine for various reasons. I think time is a crucial one, because children, jobs, looking after other people, our lives are so busy now. So I think a lot of people struggle to fit it in, but also I think a lot of people feel a little bit intimidated when they go to the gym, especially if it's not something they've done before. There was actually a recent survey which said that 90% of women feel judged at some point when working out. It's called gym intimidation. Why do you think so many women feel this way? And what do you think can be done to help women feel more confident when going to the gym?
Yeah, so definitely about time. I also think the gym intimidation is such a vital one, because I read up on this the other day. Literally, it was 1970 that it became more acceptable for women to exercise in general. And if they were exercising before that, it would have been at home because they were literally embarrassed to sweat in public. And that to me is just wild. So if you think about it, we've had 50 odd years of actually exercising publicly. So one, I think a big thing of it is education. And I think one, not knowing what to do. Two, it being a very male dominated space. So not knowing what to do, and then in a space that you don't feel like you belong in, no wonder you don't want to do it, or you feel intimidated by that area. And then I think it was 10 years after it became more accepted that weightlifting actually recognized it in their official competitions, that women can actually join us for this, which is quite cool. So again, 40 years we've actually been weightlifting. So one, not recognizing it as a priority and how important it is, not just for the day-to-day life of getting stronger to lift your kids up, and actually realizing, I'm not going to hurt my back doing XYZ. No wonder people feel intimidated. But also my massive ethos with when I coach ladies or help them feel a bit more confident is empower through education. I think it's so vital that if you know what you're doing, you know you're doing it safely, you will feel empowered to enter any space. So the typical weight section where the blokes are lifting and grunting and whatever. I feel if you know that your form is sick and that you're amazing at doing it, you can literally walk up to that bench and be I can do this really well. And yeah, again, I'm not trying to bash men, but sometimes even their form's not very good. So I'm like, how are you so confident when your form is like that?
Yeah.
Sorry to be negative, but
well, you are a trainer and you know what you're doing. So
Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of people just absolutely don't know what they're doing in the gym.
Yeah.
And I think that's really apparent. And when you realize that most people are just making it up as they go along, it kind of makes you
Yeah,
feel a bit better.
Yeah, exactly.
My struggle is remembering the reps. So I have had PTs in the past who've been really helpful. But unless I like video them or write down a plan, I just forget everything that they taught me. So
Yeah,
I feel
100%.
like that's a big part of it, is like not just leaving the session and like forgetting it, actually trying to incorporate it yourself. But obviously, like seeing a PT can really change the game, because your job will be to find people's weaknesses and where they can really progress and get their strength going. You've created a really safe and empowering space for your clients. You do your online coaching as well. How are you finding ways to help women feel a bit more empowered about the bodies that they're in and maybe not feel that gym intimidation that's been going on?
So totally agree with like having a PT. Like, you're not meant to know what you're doing in the gym, and that's literally why I've got a job, because you're just not meant to know. And so again, it probably is through the exercise technique and ensuring, like, I think PTs are fantastic. I think you want to make sure that they're not rep counting. So like, I know that you said you struggle with rep counting, but then in between those reps, ensuring that like we're checking your spine, you're checking that your form's correct, we're checking that you're driving through your heel for that right muscle engagement. We're asking you questions of where you feel it and all that. So it's very interactive and not passive. That's a massive thing. So if you are looking for a PT, you want them to have that kind of structure. That kind of ensures that it's safe. I love face-to-face PTing, and I think it's really great. But when I have online training, I really like the idea of educating you so much to the point that you can do it by yourself, so that you're not dependent on somebody else. So you can enter a space, own it, feel confident with it, and not be like, again, if you go with a friend, love that, love the accountability. But if that friend turns out busy, you're not going to go to the gym. And then same example, if you only show up to the gym with a PT and that's 2 hours a week, what are you doing for the other amount of time that you should be exercising, the 150 minutes per week? I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think finding independence in exercise is good.
Because I think it is, again, 150 minutes. We only learned that for the last 50 years that's actually crucial for us. So we're not in actually a routine. Your mum might not have been as active as you were today. They're your role model. It's just learning what's good for you, and around your busy schedule, around your kids. Like, it is still a trial and error. You've got like NHS worker that does night shifts, so then they have to work out what works to them. You've got a police officer, so they need to work out what they need to do. Like, it is so independent and specific to yourself. It's just trial and error until you get it right.
And 150 minutes sounds a lot, but that's 5 days a week of half an hour.
Yeah.
I actually said I did a little solo episode recently, and I was saying that for me what really works is like variety. So not just like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week, because I think for a lot of people that isn't what they want to be doing. So it's, okay, what classes can I incorporate?
Yeah.
Do I go out for a run? Do I do speed walking? Or, you know, so I think finding the mix is also really important in terms of staying on track. I've also seen in research that fitness images on social media can be also intimidating to a lot of people. Confidence can be an issue. How would you say you navigate that, as someone who's very fit and you're training all the time? How do you navigate posting that content online and sort of empowering other women to train?
I filter my social media. So like, if there is an influencer online that potentially doesn't have a body like me, like they've got super long, slim legs, they've got big boobs, like something that doesn't relate to me, I will actively like unfollow them, or not in a horrible way, but be like, this isn't good for my mental state. So like, I just say, find someone with a similar body image to you, if that's what the goals are. And that seems to work with a lot of my girls. And then also, I think just the use of social media in general, like, I think we're very used to having the phone when we go to the toilet, the phone before bed, the phone in the morning, like as soon as you wake up, and you're always opening yourself up to a highlight reel. I'm sure you've heard of that on social media, how Instagram and TikTok is the highlight of someone's day. So recognizing that if you're consuming that for so many hours per day, that's not going to be healthy for you. So reducing that screen time, finding other activities that are like dopamine enhancing. So reading, or going for a walk outside, or listening to a podcast rather than visually seeing something. I mean, I've got a blocking app. I literally block my phone from like 10 p.m. and I don't unblock it until maybe like 9 in the morning, because I'm like free from that. To be fair, it sounds really awful. It sounds really good, but I like physically have to, otherwise it won't happen. Like I could say, oh, I'm not going to go on my phone after 10, but I'll find an excuse and you have to put those barriers in.
And does that help you sleep better, would you say, as well?
Yeah, 100%. Because I think I'm not stimulated in my brain like I am choosing to read instead. I'm choosing to I actually listened to Harry Potter by Stephen Fry as an audiobook, because his voice, I'm not even listening to the story, but his voice is so soothing. I'm just like falling asleep to that. It's great.
That's another great tip. Yeah. I think it's really important to make these decisions for ourselves when you are feeling overwhelmed. We all compare ourselves, and it's definitely true for a lot of women, I think, with their bodies, as they feel a lot of pressure to look a certain way. And that can also be a hurdle with getting yourself in the gym, where you feel maybe judged.
The other thing that I realised is, I know there's like sometimes quite a negative outlook on body positivity online, but I did start to post about my insecurities online, and the amount of like positive feedback of women being like, oh my gosh, the fact that you're worried about that, like that's crazy. And like realising that your ideal body that you're idolising online, they still have bits about their body that they dislike. So I think finding those pages that are inspiring, normal, like I'm kind of pleased that I'm a PT and I have a fit body, because it's like, it's my job to do that. Whereas if you're like a Gen Pop, like wonderful woman that does her normal work and is a mum and all that jazz, don't compare your body to mine, where I literally exercise for a living. Like it's just not realistic. I hope that doesn't shame anybody, but like, yeah, fine, people have similar. I follow loads of these wonderful women who literally show their insecurities daily, and the comments are just flooding in of like, oh my god, me too, and I like that.
It's reassuring, I think, for people, because I think when you're stuck in your own head and perhaps thinking about your insecurities, sometimes you put other people on a pedestal. You see like, oh, they look so great, they're so strong, they're so fit, they're running marathons. And actually when you realize that they also have their own problems, being sort of open, I think, is always a good way of making others also feel like they can. There was
this post, I don't know if you saw it, but this lady did this ultra marathon. I don't know the full details, but then there's a picture of her halfway through the ultra marathon, and she's got her child and she's breastfeeding her child. Did you see that?
Yeah, recently.
And it was like incredible, and everyone's like, wow, she's incredible. And then I saw one of the comments, and it was like, if you were postpartum and you were breastfeeding, don't worry that you're not running a marathon. And I was like, it's so positive that she's doing it, but then also, hell yeah, you don't need to feel like you can do that postpartum. If you've got postnatal depression, don't worry that you're not running a bloody marathon. Like you're fine.
Absolutely. So, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
In terms of your fitness journey, so you worked in this industry for 8 years. You're working on the Gymshark Pro team, which is a high profile job. You guys are leading some really amazing classes. You're doing some really cool projects. How did you get to where you are now?
Yeah. Good question. I think it all started when I was younger. Like I was always very sporty. It was always hockey, netball. Then I went to the gym. Really boring, but I like injured my ankle and I was waitressing at the time. So I kind of dropped the sports but kept the gym and waitressing because I had to work. And I think I just have a real passion for people. And so like creating that combination of exercise activity that I love with people that I love kind of just merged into one. Did face-to-face for like 6 years. That was great. Was a huge fan of, when you speak things into universe, I was a huge fan of Gymshark. And then my colleague at my last gym was like, oh, like here's this job opportunity, apply. So I did. I think I'm not the personality hire, but they were like, oh my God, she's like really friendly. She knows what she's doing. Like, let's hire her. And I haven't looked back. It's been really wonderful. Gymshark is incredible. They've got the same ethos as me. Like we have classes where, you have a studio class and you've got those little like rubber barbells and you put these tiny little plates on. Mm-hmm. They're great. They work for some people, but we have like Olympic standard kit, like a 20 kg barbell, the proper bumper plates. And we will put a beginner through a strength class. Like we'll get them deadlifting and squatting and bench pressing like perfectly. And then my colleagues, my other fitness pros, they have the same ethos as me where education over everything, technique is super important. So I just felt like I really belonged in that area. And it's kind of best of both worlds because I had a team there, but then I also was able to like isolate my passion with women and like helping them with their cycles and stuff through my online side. So I got a bit of both, which is wonderful. It's
a really nice balance. And I loved even just doing the run club. It was kind of like being on a night out, but like first thing in the morning and with caffeine, obviously, instead of alcohol. And like the vibes, the music, everything about it was so good. Being around that must be a really cool sort of space. And then also sharing the knowledge that you've kind of grown through your online clients as well is amazing.
The fantastic thing about all of us there is that we're all very good at what we do, but we've all got like a slight little trail off of like Josh is fantastic at powerlifting and Olympic lifting, and then Tyler's our adaptive athlete, so he does like calisthenic. He's got one leg. He teaches us how to cater for someone with a disability. Harriet's fantastic, but like we've all just got such brilliant attributes, but then we all learn off each other. So yeah, it's just like really sick that I can teach them about the cycles, and then they'll go and teach me like how to train someone in a wheelchair or how to do this, or like, yeah, just variety.
That's amazing. Would you say it's like dream job territory?
Yeah, I think yeah, it's so difficult because my dream job is my business. Like I've always wanted my business and I love my girls, but then if I had to choose something to do alongside, oh, spot on. It's perfect.
You've got a great setup going on there.
Lucky, yeah.
It's really fun. So in terms of your clients that you speak to, when I set up the episode, mentioned that only 1 in 4 women are reaching this 150 minutes a week. Do you have any advice for people who are perhaps busy mothers, full-time jobs, juggling a million things, and just if you can't necessarily reach 150 minutes a week but could fit in maybe a couple of sessions a week, are there any sort of at-home things you could do that might make this more achievable?
It's definitely a broad like spectrum of people's availability. Like there's so many different options, and like what works for one person might not work for you, and vice versa. So especially when I do coaching with my ladies online, it all just starts with potentially like mindset of like we kind of try and dive into the emotional attachment as to why exercising is important to them. Now, it could be because they want to feel more confident in themselves. It could be that they want to be a good role model for their children. It could be that they're injured and they want to try and like come back or bounce back from childbirth or whatever it might be. So I think finding that emotional attachment so that you are more disciplined with it and you kind of realize, right, this has got to be a priority. And then you mentioned mums quite a lot, which again is so true. Like a lot of us ladies do turn into mums, and it is setting up that role model for your children. And like if you are trying to help bring up your kids in the best light or be there for your partner, if you're not at 100%, how on earth can you give to anybody else accurately or in abundance or whatever? So yeah, and then finding the time. So finding that emotional attachment and why it's important, but then also structuring that into your week. So you say you don't have time, and I hate to be that person, like, what was that? We all have the same 24 hours as Beyonce or whatever. Like, no, not that at all. But starting with like home workouts, starting with a YouTube video of someone that has similar goals to you so that you can do it as the baby's sleeping, or you can do it after your night shift. I have some clients where we'll have 3 sessions inside a gym, but then we'll have an extra spare 2 that you can perform at home. So like, okay, you know what, I went to the gym yesterday, can't make it today, I'm going to do this home session. So it's having that variety available. Yeah, variety, importance, emotional attachment to it. A client will say, oh, I want to lose a stone. And I'll be like, but why a stone, and what does that mean to you? And then I'll explain how they want to fit into their favorite pair of jeans. I'm like, well, why is it important to fit into that favorite pair of jeans? They're like, well, because it shows that I'm disciplined to get there. It also shows that I'm fueling my body with stuff that's going to build me up rather than make me crash and not do well with my day. So again, emotional attachment. I hope I've answered that appropriately.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's also one of those things where at the start is really hard. But if you've managed to actually work it in and get into a routine, I guess almost for a lot of people, it's like the endorphins that you become a bit reliant on. And actually, when you do skip it, you feel it. And actually, it becomes way worse to not exercise. And that's really guilt. Where you want to get to. That's a great realization to have, because I think that a lot of people think, oh, I hate the gym, makes me feel like so, awful after, or I'm in so much pain after that I don't get that sort of buzz. And I think once you overcome that and you get into a routine of perhaps exercising a few times a week at least, you kind of live for those endorphins after a while. And it happens to most people. It's really rare actually that once you get into an exercise pattern that doesn't happen to you. It's very uncommon. Like most people actually do feel the difference and actually feel a lot better. So I guess that's kind of reassuring, and it is a way to motivate. I do think it's a question though. I think there is so much evidence for women just not having time, and I think throwing children in the mix is what really is the difference sometimes for going to the gym and not going to the gym. And I guess it's finding those really achievable little ways at home. Even if you can't go to the gym, the exercise videos, the online coaching, fitting it around your schedule when it's on your terms.
So I actually had a call this morning with a lead, and she got referred by a client that I don't have anymore. And she said they've known each other since school. She watched her friend from school like go through like losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, and like up and down. And then since she's been with me, she's lost the weight and like postpartum and like is loving it, and she's still in that area. And she basically said it's because she's had this lifestyle change. And I said, yeah, like we won't have fast results. It'll be like slowly chipping away. Again, finding out what works for you. She preferred morning sessions. She had to have a discussion with her partner if he could look after the kids for X amount of time. It was just like little tiny micro changes in your schedule that, no, you're not going to be working out 5 times a week to start with. She is now, but like to start with, it was 2. And it was 2 with maybe a spare third home one if she wanted. And then she loved it so much that she was like, okay, I'm going to make this a priority. And she would turn up to the gym for 20 minutes and then come home again. So this call this morning was her basically saying like, I've got ADHD, I can't do that, I can't go to the gym, that like my mind will go everywhere, I will get easily distracted, it will not happen. And I said, that's fine, like we'll have those home sessions. The gym sessions will also maybe substitute your 10k steps for an at-home bike ride, and she likes to ride horses, so it is just being so specific to the individual. You just have to take the time, and that's not trying to plug it, but you need professional help from a fitness person. If you can't afford it, then there is help online. I'm sure NHS will be able to direct you in the right position and all of that.
I think there was a big wave during COVID of people doing online videos, even on YouTube. You know, there were lots of yoga things and little HIIT workouts at home. And I think that is a good routine to get into. It's definitely something I do if I have a day where I've not got much time to go to the gym, if I've got an early morning thing, or if I'm not feeling well, or we were just talking a minute ago off mic about hay fever. Both sufferers, and this year's been really, really potent. So there were days where I was too tired to go for a run, so I would do a little at-home video for half an hour. And it's like, well, at least then you've done something. And I think you can just feel good about yourself and that you've done that. I'm interested to talk to you about cycle syncing. This is something you talk about. You do some excellent reels. You did one the other day, which was you doing the same exercise in your luteal phase and in your follicular phase. And it was a really remarkable difference, not just in your form, but also in the amount that you were lifting. Tell us more about cycle syncing, what it is.
Yes. So for those that aren't sure, you've got 4 stages of your menstrual cycle. So you've got phase 1, which is menstruation, which is where you're bleeding. You then have phase 2, which is like follicular phase. This is kind of where you've got more estrogen, less progesterone. You've got the 3rd phase, which is your ovulatory phase, where you're most fertile, which is kind of like peak for estrogen, testosterone, maybe a little bit of progesterone. But and then we've got the 4th phase, which is your luteal phase. Estrogen has dropped, progesterone is present. So all these different hormones are flowing through you. Women can have a cycle for 28 days. They can have it for 35 days. Like, it does vary from individual to individual. So my first thing would be tracking your cycle and knowing where you are in it, so that you can kind of understand what your exercise feels like. And then also, I'm really naughty because I track my clients' progress week by week. But as I'm doing that, I will say like, okay, maybe your weight's increased because you're increased in water retention, because you're in your luteal phase, whatever it might be. Cycle syncing is basically planning your workouts around this 4-stage menstrual cycle. So it could be, we know that estrogen is really good at increasing your energy levels. It helps you feel more motivated. It helps you feel like more bouncy, like more like, we call it the Beyonce hormone. There's a book. Have you read Period Power? I'm not saying you have.
Yes, I have. Yes, it's a great book.
So Period Power by Maisie Hill is a great book, and it helps put it into a normal, non-scientific way, which is easier to read. And so estrogens will be your Beyonce hormone. It makes you feel like a queen. You feel confident. You feel amazing. You feel sassy. And then we've got progesterone, which is in the second half of your menstrual cycle, and we call it progesterone your Kristen Stewart hormone. So like, but Kristen Stewart from Twilight, where she's like a bit dull, like a little bit like slower moving, like more chill. So if you think about it, the 2 comparisons of character, you will not be able to do as the smashing workouts in your follicular phase as you will in your luteal phase. So it's understanding. With my clients, I normally recommend in that luteal phase, go for consistency over intensity. And then they might do a check-in with me where I'm like, okay, you've just had your period, we're in that follicular phase, energy's going to be high, estrogen's going to be up, I want you to go smash your workouts and lift heavier than you did last week. And they'll be like, okay, great, and they'll go do it. The other benefit of cycle syncing is in your luteal phase, you are feeling less motivated, maybe a little bit less energized, but you also have slower recovery as well. So not only are you like less motivated to go to the gym, you might ache a little bit more, you might feel more fatigued. So it's just kind of cycle syncing, so you're more motivated, you're not so disheartened when you're not smashing your workout like you did last week. And so what we should be doing is tracking your progress from this week of this month to that week of next month.
And the tracking apps are really helpful. Fitbit, I've got the Fitbit, and it is, when you start realizing actually, and you start learning about your cycle, it is genuinely amazing. It actually stops you from being so hard on yourself. So if you are having one of those days where you're not performing at your best, you're really low energy, and then you realize where you are in your cycle, it's like, oh, it's
nice
not
realization.
Me. Yeah, and it is good. And actually, do you know what? The other day I did a reformer class because I'm a real reformer fan, and I love it. I'm just a full convert, and I've started trying to have breakfast before I exercise, which a few people online have recommended. Actually, has really helped me in terms of energy levels. Nice. But I had my breakfast, had a matcha, and I was in my follicular phase. I was really smashing that reformer, and the teacher 3 times was like, "Yes, Emily," and I was like, what is going on? I feel like Superwoman.
Last week I was,
And then I was like, oh, it's because of where I am in my cycle.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then you have other days where you go and you feel terrible and you're wobbling all over the place. It's like, So I think having those realizations is really important. And I have so many friends who I've spoken to and they don't know where they are in their cycle.
Yeah,
they come on their period and they're like, oh, I didn't even know I was, that explains the last week or whatever. So, it's crazy. Well, I guess the tools are there now, right?
100%. Tools are there, and we're always taught to track to make sure that you're not pregnant or you are pregnant, and it's that's the tiniest little bit. I mean, obviously the menstrual cycle is there to help us reproduce, but actually it does affect us 28 days. And I saw a couple of TikToks where it was comparing a woman's hormone cycle, 28 days on average, but a man's is literally 24 hours. So their day can reset literally the day after when it comes to cortisol, the stress hormone, and all that jazz.
Jealous.
Yeah, I know, for God's sake. But then again, I saw this lovely post that said, turn your menstrual cycle into your superpower, where even though we feel we feel really sluggish and rubbish in our luteal phase, well, actually, progesterone is actually named our anti-anxiety hormone. So it's actually an opportunity to pull back. You don't need to socialize. Maybe it's time for self-care. Maybe it's time to just put yourself first rather than going out and smashing it and partying or socializing or whatever it is. So it's quite nice. When people are like, oh, I'm in my luteal phase, I'm PMSing. People think that it's progesterone or it's the hormones in your luteal phase. It's actually where coming up to a couple of days before your period, all your hormones will drop. So you'll have minimal hormones running through you. And it's actually known as the hormone hangover. So it's the lack of these hormones that make you feel like this. And I just thought that was so interesting. When you feel really rubbish and then the period comes the next day and you're like, oh, that's why. I just love that because you're like, oh, it's actually the lack of my gorgeous, lovely hormones that make me feel so good.
It is wild.
It's so wild. There's so much to learn.
Wild. They make you feel like such a different person at times. As well as cycle syncing, you also open up about taboos, which I think is a really fun thing. So on social media, you do Taboo Tuesdays, I think. I've seen them, where you encourage women to open up about their biggest taboos, perhaps with their body. How have you found this with your community?
They've actually bloody loved it. And it's really interesting because I'll have so many responses. So basically every Tuesday I'll ask what Taboo Tuesday topics do we have? And I will ask people to send in their comments. I can see who sent it, but I will share it anonymously. So they'll kind of explain their mishaps, their female hygiene stuff, their women's health issues. But it all started because me and my girlfriends are actually really open about this stuff. We will say, oh, I had the worst period. And then we will talk to women who maybe aren't this open about that stuff. And they'll also be shocked at the level we're talking about. And I also think just why aren't we talking about this? I think it was the panel talk that you attended. I basically told the whole audience that I had a UTI without having sex. But then in my brain afterwards, I was like, a lot of people will assume that's because I'm unclean or unhygienic, when actually it wasn't. It was just a pH levels were wrong and all this random stuff. And I thought I shouldn't be embarrassed to talk about that when, it's just these little things. So I kind of want an opportunity for women to share their experiences, how their period leaks through their skirt or all this stuff. I share it anonymously. And then the amount of women that have actually come up to me and spoken to my face and said, oh my gosh, I related so much to that. Because again, they're still a little bit nervous and a little bit shy to tell me online. So I think it's just making it normalize it. I think I'm sorry to bring up the patriarchy, but I think we're just kind of told to be quiet and not talk about things. And not that this might go off topic a little bit, but I remember my mum saying when she was a little girl, like bringing up certain things at the dinner table, or not that you would bring that up at the dinner table, but there's like certain talk that she wouldn't even talk about with her parents. She wouldn't even talk about with her friends. And even she loves it. Like she loves to tell me her taboos and stuff. So
that's so nice.
Yeah, like she did, like she sends them in. I'm like, well, that's wild. I was like, bloody hell, mum, do I need to know that? But that's what I'm saying. Like it shouldn't be. And that's the thing, you can talk to me about periods. You can say about sexual stuff. You can talk about anything. Like, yeah,
I love it.
Yeah,
and it makes you feel more normal when you see these things about discharge, about UTIs. You know, you're like, oh, it's all just part of being a woman, isn't it?
Normal,
so
exactly.
I love that. I've got some questions for you. I opened up a Q&A to my community, and I've got some brilliant questions from a few of our viewers. So I've got a few here which hopefully you can answer. One from Isabella, which is about endometriosis, saying, are there ways to support heavy bleeding and endometriosis, plus kinds of activities you can do when you're feeling weak and particularly tired?
Yes. So endometriosis, it's actually so common. I think it's like 1 in 10 women or 1 in 5 women or something like that experience it. What I would suggest, I always suggest this with clients where they are in their cycles as well, is consistency over intensity. So we've already said that exercise makes you feel so good. It will help release those endorphins. So yes, you don't feel like going to the gym and smashing it or going for a sprint or a run or whatever. But like, how do you feel about just getting up and moving the body and helping your circulation by going for a walk, or maybe sitting on a stationary bike and going through that? And I think it is prioritizing your mental health over it. I know there's forums and things online. I think there's like good Facebook forums and like community groups where you can chat and you can experience what works for other people. Again, what works for them might not work for you, but it's good to have that scope of things to try. Minimally processed foods, if you know that in certain parts of your cycle. So again, track your cycle. If you know in certain parts of your cycle, probably when you're menstruating, it gets worse and the pain gets more. Tracking that. I have this thing with my clients where I call it a PMS first aid kit, and it's actually a little picture infographic that I've made, but we put together like a basket where it's got like a blanket, your favorite snacks, your favorite treats, your favorite movie, and all this stuff. And I'll send it to them as a little reminder, and they'll go put it together when they're feeling good in their follicular phase, so that when it comes to their rubbish days in luteal phase, they've got something ready. They've got a little self-care package for their future self.
That's so nice.
Yeah, it's nice. I'm not sure, obviously that's not talking about activity, but I think being okay with it, being okay with not going out and smashing your workout. Like I've got clients with, is it PMDD?
Yeah.
Where it's like the really intense depression pre-menstrual cycle. And yeah, it's just, if you can't get out of bed, don't worry. Like there's other countries that have period leave where you get paid like annual leave to not go in, or like sick leave for awful periods, which bring to the UK.
I know, that would be
good.
Yeah, it's really difficult if you've got something like endo and trying to work out and find consistency. Obviously will get in the way at times, and being kind to yourself, I guess, is really important.
Yeah, flexible as well. Like you can't have a 4-day workout week. There was that other thing. It was the stacking strength training in the follicular phase. And that's just like new, I think it's been around for a while actually, but this method of putting majority of your resistance training in your follicular phase where you're feeling a little bit better, and then more sporadic or less consistent in your luteal phase. And it saw pretty much similar results as, let's say you were training 3 times a week, 4 times a week normally. If you stacked your strength training in your follicular phase, it might be like resistance training every other day, where maybe you've got less pain, less inflammation, and then twice a week in your luteal phase. So you're keeping that stimulus inside the muscle in your luteal phase, but you're just going there for the consistency, not the intensity. And then you're smashing it in your follicular phase where you feel better. So maybe try that with the endometriosis. I'm not saying it will work, but as an option, the flexibility.
Great. That's a really good tip. Yeah. I've got a message from Charlie, and actually a few women had similar questions. And this was again about having children, finding time, full-time job. Charlie asked, the only time I can fit it in is if I get up before the kids, but I'm often too tired to do that. What's some easy things I can do in the day to stay fit?
Yes. There is something called NEAT activity. Have you heard of NEAT activity? No. Non-exercise activity. So like us walking into the studio, us walking upstairs, whatever it is, that burns calories and increases your like fitness without it depleting your energy levels. Like it's activity that's not classed as exercise. So you know, people say like get your step count. That's pretty much why we say to increase your step count, because you are exercising, you're being active without reducing your energy supplies. So it's kind of like, let's say but you're also probably knackered because you've got kids, but let's say your kids are going to a swimming thing and you have to sit and wait for an hour until they're done. Opportunity to maybe stand while you wait, or do a couple of laps of the swimming pool room, or whatever it might be.
Or
but
pick a leisure centre that has a gym as well. That's always a good one.
Yeah,
go and get a quick 45 minutes in.
Exactly. So like join in with that. And yeah, it's kind of through the day. I mean, there's silly little ones, which I say is silly, but I think they're quite funny in a fun way. While the kettle's boiling, do 10 squats until it's done. Or if park your car away from the grocery store like an extra 100 meters so you have further to walk to get there. Little micro adjustments I think would be really good. And again, because it's movement, but it's not killer thrashed workouts where you might reduce your energy, so then you're like, God, I'm feeling knackered after that workout, but now I've got to go look after the kids. It's kind of a little bit more subtle, a little bit more manageable.
I love these. They're so practical. And I feel like people underestimate how these small changes, which are just really being a little bit more active, so whether it's walking to work or, you know, finding a way to walk a bit more when you're at work and things like that. I think finding those mini changes that we can actually do can actually make quite a bit of difference. So I think that's really helpful.
A client's got one where she's made a mate at work where they go on a walk at lunchtime. So like you just grab someone and they go for a walk and they chat and they could have a meeting. Another client has a meeting on a phone call while going for a walk. And I'm not saying that walking is the only thing, but it's like these little changes.
I guess a lot of mums also who with babies do get the running buggies, which is also helpful. I see them live near a park in London and see them with the running buggies. I'm like, yes, come on, do it. Lou has asked what to do when people aren't following gym etiquette. I love this one, especially men in brackets.
Exactly.
And weights are thrown on the ground or leaving rubbish around. It really puts me off going.
Yeah, that's a big one. And it's frustrating because you don't want to put yourself in an awkward position where you have to confront them, because that's, again, not your job to do that. I think it's the classic, if people don't put their weights away, if they don't wipe their sweat off equipment, if they are making loud grunting noises or they've got their top off, like, that's frustrating. A client the other day actually had a horrible altercation with some guys at the gym, and she literally went to the management and she was like, this was unacceptable. And she was assertive as anything. Like, it was incredible the way she was telling me, and it really shook her up. But she was assertive, and they gave her a 3-month membership. They gave her this. They told the guys off. I think they even banned one of the guys. So it's kind of speaking to someone of authority and not get yourself in. I want to be confrontational, and I want to be like, hey, you can't do that, but actually just keep yourself safe. Don't make it a more scary place. But I'm just thinking, if I was doing the things that upset somebody else, I'm not saying I do any of them, but let's say I did an action that upset someone, how would I want to find out that someone wasn't happy with it? I think I would prefer management to come and tell me.
So I have a gym sort of where I live that's quite small, and I do find that difficult. So sometimes there'll be guys that just, and it is, I don't want to just say it's guys, but a lot of the time it is, who will just slam down those weights, and you'll be on the floor doing something and you're like
right next to you,
because you don't know if it's like going to land on you. And I do find also, I can agree that I find the grunting, the loud, you're just icky. Every now and again there'll just be someone who's just like overdoing it a little bit, and you're like,
we get it, you're strong,
you don't need to make those noises. Like I'm all for a big powerful breath and an out breath, and I think obviously breath is so important for our training and supporting your body. But to also add the vocal cords to it,
it doesn't make sense.
It really bothers me as well. I think also you can shop around with gyms. I feel like there are some gyms where these people resonate to more than others.
No, I agree.
So I guess you can also...
It's like more socially acceptable. Like, I remember in my old gym, we were very much like a no tops off, like keep your shirt on the whole time, because it was quite a beginnery gym. Like, we didn't want to make anybody feel more intimidated than, again, the already intimidating space of a gym. But then I guess if you were to give feedback to someone, I always want to start it with positive, being like, wow, so strong, love that, can you teach me? And then be like, oh, do you mind doing it a bit quieter? Or something like that. Just like start with 2 positives and finish with a constructive.
That is good. It's like the sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. Just like make them feel really good and then slide it in and be like,
I love that. I love that. I'm going to try that next time. Sadly, we're running out of time.
So sorry.
I would love to know, because you're obviously very consistent. You know, you're very strong. I love your videos. You are so strong. It's amazing. What keeps you motivated on the days where you are finding it hard?
Yeah, I want to make this very clear. Like, even as a fitness professional, I have days of zero motivation. And I think the top thing again is that emotional connection to the goal, reminding yourself of that goal. And I actually have it written down in my notes app. So like some days where I'm like, I really can't be bothered, I will go and read that. Secondly is having that plan and that structure. So I, at the moment, because I'm quite busy with work, I'm training 4 days out of my week. I ideally want to do 5, but I'm like, you know what, what's realistic, what's consistent? So I will have a plan to stick to. So whether that's a plan of like your week plan and your week schedule, or physical, like you have your workouts listed and you know that you need to achieve this, this and this to achieve the goals that you've written in your notes. But then I also think having that flexibility. So we're saying if you're a mum, if you're a busy lady, if like everything, you can't achieve that. I did it with a client the other day. I said, give me 3 reasons why you want to achieve 4 days a week or achieve your training sessions. But I said, but then also give me 3 reasons of why it's okay if you don't achieve those 3. And I think it's also having that balance of, again, not feeling guilty because you didn't do your 4 sessions, but also understanding like 4 sessions needs to happen because I will have goals to hit. So I think structure and routine's massive. Again, having the flexibility if you can't complete those 4. What I would say to anybody who's wanting to get into the gym is to actually see progress and stimulus in the muscle. An absolute minimum of 2 sessions a week will get you the progress that you want, or like keep your progress. Once a week is just not enough. So maybe that should be your external motivation of being like, if you're doing once a week, great, but actually minimum of 2.
2+ seems achievable.
Yeah, exactly. So like, again, if you're doing your 2, but you had 4 on the plan, don't worry, you're still stimulating the muscle.
Yeah. That's great advice. Vikki, thank you so much for coming on the Health Review. For anyone who has loved this episode, wants to check you out, wants to maybe join your online coaching, where can they find you?
Oh, so I'm Vikki Hill PT on Instagram, but it's VIKKI Hill PT. Sorry about that. But yeah, I've got links on there, everything. I'm on TikTok as well. But yeah, I mean, check out the page, see if it's what you fancy. I am really hot on women's health, women's menstrual cycles, making you feel confident in that intimidating space. And again, recognizing that it is sometimes unrealistic, sometimes unachievable, like sustainable. It's all about sustainability. But yeah, I'd love to.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I wish we could sit here all day and carry this conversation on because it's so fun. Yes. Thank you so much. I love all your videos. I love your updates. I love your gym inspo and all the kind of real stuff that you post. So thank you. And I will certainly be following you and keeping up to date with what you're doing.
Thank you for all your stuff. Absolutely obsessed with everything that you do. So thank you.
Thank you.